I dated my brother's young girlfriend and told my brother to stop acting like a baby and move on. My entitled family cut me off and abandoned me, choosing my fragile brother. Now my new girlfriend cheated on me, called me a pervert, and left. Still, my brother and parents ignored me. I'm 29, turning 30 in April, and I've been with my girlfriend for about 4 months now. She turns 19 in May. I know that's the first thing people are going to focus on, and I get it, but I don't personally see it as wrong. We're both adults. We both chose this. What's making this complicated isn't really the age gap to me, it's the fact that she used to date my younger brother. They were together for around 2 years. Back then, she was just someone I'd see when I visited my parents. She'd be sitting on the couch next to him or helping my mom. Nothing that stood out. I was in my own relationship at the time anyway, so I didn't pay attention to her beyond basic politeness. She was just his girlfriend. That was it. I broke up with my ex at the start of last summer. It wasn't dramatic, just one of those things where I couldn't see it going anywhere serious and didn't want to drag it out, so I was single again, kind of just doing my own thing. Then in July, we all went on a family vacation. My parents, my brother, and she came along. At that point, they had both just finished high school, so it wasn't like she was a kid tagging along, she was part of the group. During that trip, she started talking to me more. At first, it was normal stuff, asking about work, what I'd been up to, things like that. But it didn't stay surface level. We ended up talking a lot, like long conversations, sometimes just the two of us while everyone else was doing something else. I remember one moment pretty clearly. She asked how old I was, and when I told her 29, she looked genuinely surprised. She said she thought I was around 19 or 20 when she first met me. I kinda laughed it off, but I guess that stuck with her. I take care of myself, I stay in shape, and I don't really look my age, so I'm used to those comments. My brother didn't seem to like how much we were talking. He wasn't saying anything directly, but I could tell. He'd get quiet when we were in the same space or just leave the room. I didn't think too much of it at the time because we were just talking. I wasn't trying to cross any lines. About a month after that trip, everything changed. My brother got arrested for assault. This wasn't completely out of nowhere. He's had issues before, getting into trouble, bad decisions, that kind of thing. But this time, it was serious enough that he ended up in jail. She broke up with him after that. From what I understand, that was the final straw for her. 2 weeks later, she reached out to me. She asked if I wanted to hang out, just as friends do. At that point, I was casually seeing other women, nothing serious, mostly from apps, so I figured it was harmless. I didn't see it as a date. We went to the movies. We were sitting there talking before it started, and she kept saying how different I was from my brother. More stable, more mature, not getting into trouble. I didn't really know how to respond to that, so I mostly just nodded or changed the subject. But there was a moment where things shifted. We ended up kissing. It wasn't planned, it just happened. After that, it stopped being just friends. We kept seeing each other, hooking up at first, then spending more time together outside of that. It didn't feel forced. It felt easy, honestly. Eventually, we just became a couple without really sitting down and labeling it in a big way. The part I knew was going to be a problem was my family, so I avoided it. For months, I didn't bring her around. I told my parents I was seeing someone, but I kept it vague. I thought if I gave it time, especially with my brother dealing with his own situation, maybe it would soften things. I decided to bring her over on New Year's. I figured enough time had passed. That was probably my mistake. The second we walked in, the energy was off. My mom and dad went quiet. Not angry, just shut down. My brother saw us and immediately got up and went to his room, then slammed the door. I tried to talk to him and knocked on the door, but he just yelled at me to "Fuff off." I've never heard him talk to me like that before. We've always been close, like actually close, not just we're brothers. We didn't stay long after that. It felt uncomfortable, like we weren't wanted there. Since then, my parents have been pressuring me to end things. They've basically said that if I want any kind of normal relationship with my brother again, I need to break up with her. They're not yelling or anything, but it's constant. Every conversation circles back to it. I'm stuck because I do love my family. I don't want to lose my relationship with my brother over this. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair that he gets to decide who she dates, especially when he's the one who messed things up with her. And I don't think my parents should be trying to control my relationship either. I keep going back and forth in my head. Part of me feels like I should stand my ground because this is my life. Another part of me keeps thinking about how things used to be with my brother and whether this is worth losing that over. I don't feel like I'm doing something wrong, but clearly everyone around me thinks I am, and now I'm the one dealing with the fallout. There were a lot of opinions, one said, so let me get this straight. Women your own age exist, right? like fully grown adults with life experience, jobs, independence, and you skipped all of them to date your brother's 18-year-old ex who was literally around your family home not that long ago. Yeah, that's not a coincidence. That's a choice. And I don't buy this idea that it just naturally happened. You had multiple points where you could have stepped back. Vacation conversations getting too personal. Step back. Noticing your brother getting uncomfortable. Step back. She reaches out right after breaking up. Step way the hell back. You didn't. You kept leaning in every single time. Your brother is obviously a train wreck, but that doesn't make you the good guy by default. It just makes you the more functional version of the same problem, poor judgment when it comes to boundaries. And the age thing matters whether you like it or not. She's just entering adulthood. You're almost 30. The fact that you're even comfortable in this situation says a lot. You didn't just date a woman, you dated that woman. That's why your family's done with you right now. Another person said, "You sound way too impressed with yourself in this whole thing. The I look young, I stay in shape, and she thought I was 19. Stuff is weird because it reads like you're trying to preemptively defend why a 19-year-old wanted you. That's already telling. Here's how this looks from the outside. Your brother is unstable, immature, and self-destructive. You're the older brother who knows how to keep a job, stay calm, and look like the safer option. To a girl who just got out of a chaotic relationship, that probably felt comforting. But comforting isn't the same as healthy, and older doesn't automatically mean honorable. Sometimes it just means you should know better. Her part in this isn't innocent either. Going from one brother to the other is messy as hell and guaranteed to blow up the family. She knew that. Maybe she wanted safety, maybe she wanted revenge, maybe she just likes attention and drama. Who knows? But she absolutely knew what match she was lighting. Your brother's reaction makes sense, even if he's an arsehole. He probably feels replaced, humiliated, and exposed. You didn't just date his ex. You made yourself part of his worst spiral. Another opinion, you're gross. I don't even need to overanalyze it. You're almost 30 and you picked your younger brother's teenage ex out of all the options available to you. That's not love just happened. That's you, ignoring every obvious boundary because it felt good in the moment. And don't hide behind the consenting adults line like it wipes everything clean. Legal doesn't mean normal, and it definitely doesn't mean respectful. You watched this girl grow up in your family's orbit while she was dating your brother. Then, as soon as things blew up, you stepped in. That's foul. Also, the way you talk about her noticing your maturity compared to your brother. Yeah, no sheet. You're a decade older. That's not a flex. It's the bare minimum. You don't get points for being more stable than a guy who just got arrested. Your brother has his own problems, but this isn't about him being a saint. It's about you choosing the one person guaranteed to cause damage. There were literally endless other options that didn't involve blowing up your family dynamic. Be better than this. Right now, you're not. Follow up. After New Year's, things didn't cool down like I thought they would. I kept telling myself everyone just needed time, that once the shock wore off, they'd come around. That didn't happen. It actually went the opposite way. My parents stopped calling as much, not fully cutting me off, but it changed. Conversations got shorter. My mom used to check in about random stuff work, if I'd eaten dumb little things. That stopped. My dad went from talking about normal life stuff to only calling if something practical came up. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just absence. And then I found out they were still in contact with her. Not a lot, but enough. She mentioned one night that my mom had texted her asking if she was doing okay with everything going on. She said it casually, like it wasn't a big deal. I didn't react right away, but it stuck with me. Later, I asked her what exactly they talked about. She said it was just basic stuff, nothing deep. That messed with me more than I expected, because I'm the one getting iced out, but they're still checking on her. I brought it up to my mom, and she didn't deny it. She said something like, "She was part of our lives for a long time. I'm not going to pretend she doesn't exist." But then in the same conversation, she told me she didn't approve of us. That didn't sit right. It felt like I was the problem, not the situation. Around that time, I decided I was done waiting for things to magically fix themselves with my brother. I went over to the house specifically to talk to him. No girlfriend, just me. I knocked on his door, and after a while, he opened it. He didn't invite me in, just stood there like I was some stranger. I tried to keep it calm at first. Told him we needed to talk like adults. He didn't say much, just stared at me with that same pissed-off look. And something in me snapped a little because I'd been carrying all this tension for weeks. I told him he needed to stop acting like a baby about it. I said he lost her because of his own actions, not because of me. I brought up the arrest and the other stuff he's done. I said she left him before anything even happened between us. He stepped closer to me at that point, not yelling, just tight. He said something like, I'd been circling her even before they broke up, that I knew exactly what I was doing on that vacation. I told him that wasn't true, that we were just talking. But even as I said it, I could tell he didn't believe me at all. He said I was waiting. That part stuck. I didn't have a clean answer for it, so I doubled down instead of backing off. I told him even if that was true, it didn't change the fact that she chose me after everything. That's when he actually shoved me. My dad got involved before it went further. Told me to leave. Not, let's calm down, just leave. After that, whatever chance there was of fixing things with him disappeared. At the same time, things with her got more serious. Not in a planned way, it just shifted. She started staying over more, leaving things at my place, having a drawer, and then more than a drawer. It wasn't a formal conversation like, move in, but it basically turned into that. I told myself it meant we were solid. Like if we were building something real, then everything else would eventually fall into place. But living together made some things clearer. At first, she still talked about how different I was from my brother. Safer, calmer, more stable. I didn't mind that. It felt like validation. But over time, it changed slightly. Not in a big obvious way, just small comments. Like she'd say something I did reminded her of him. Not in a good way. The way I reacted to stress, or how I shut down instead of talking. Little stuff. But it hit weird because the whole foundation of us, at least in my head, was that I wasn't him. I started noticing myself correcting things. Like I'd stop mid-reaction and adjust how I spoke, just to not sound like him. That's not something I ever had to think about before. There were also things around the apartment that started getting to me. Stuff from when she was with him. Not sentimental, just normal life leftovers. A hoodie, some random photos on her phone, small things she didn't think mattered. But I'd see them and immediately picture them together, and I hated that I could picture it so clearly because I'd literally seen them as a couple before. I didn't say much about it at first because I didn't want to come off insecure. But it got in my head more than I expected. Then one night during an argument, something slipped out. We were arguing about my family again, about how things weren't improving and how I felt like I was the only one losing anything. She got frustrated and said something like she didn't just reach out to me as a friend back then, that she already liked me before she texted me. I asked her what that meant exactly, and she said during the vacation she already felt more comfortable talking to me than to him, that she noticed the difference then. That changed how I saw that whole timeline. Because in my head, it was clean, they broke up, then something started. But hearing that made it feel like something was already building while they were still together. I didn't handle that well. I didn't call it out directly, I twisted it into something else. I said it just proved we had a real connection, that it wasn't random. She didn't argue, but she also didn't look convinced by what I was saying. Outside of all that, things kept getting worse with everyone else. Not in dramatic confrontations, just steady distancing. I stopped getting invited to things. I found out about a small family get-together through a cousin after it already happened. No one told me directly. Even some of my friends started acting different. Not all, but enough. One of them straight up told me it was messed up what I did. Said I crossed a line you don't cross with family. I told him he didn't understand the situation, that it wasn't black and white, but he didn't budge. We haven't really talked since. The part I didn't expect is how much of my life started feeling disconnected. Like I couldn't talk about certain memories anymore because she was part of them, but in a different role. I'd start telling a story and then stop halfway because it didn't make sense with her sitting there now. She noticed that too. Asked me once why I cut myself off mid-sentence. I just said it was nothing. There have also been moments where she pulls back a bit. Not leaving, not anything like that, just quieter. Especially when the topic of my family comes up. I think she feels the weight of it even if she doesn't say it directly. When that happens, I push harder. Try to reinforce that we're solid, that this is worth it. But I've started noticing she doesn't respond the same way she did in the beginning. And I don't know what to do with that, because I've already taken this as far as I have. I said what I said to my brother. I chose this knowing what it would do. I can't exactly walk it back now without it meaning something about me I don't want to admit. At the same time, things aren't settling into something stable like I expected. It still feels like everything is slightly off, like it hasn't landed anywhere yet. I keep telling myself it just needs more time. I'm just not as sure anymore what more time is actually going to fix. What people thought. One person said, you really told your brother to stop acting like a baby after you moved in on his barely legal ex and then acted shocked he put his hands on you. Jesus Christ. You keep describing yourself like you're the only adult in the room, but every choice you make is driven by ego. Not love, not principles, but ego. You loved being the stable brother. You loved hearing that you were calmer, safer, and more mature. You didn't just date her, you built your whole self-image around being the upgrade. Your brother is a disaster, obviously. Assault charge, anger, bad judgment, all of that. But your constant fallback is, well, he's worse, which is not the same thing as you being good. It just means she went from one unhealthy dynamic to another that looks cleaner on the outside. And your parents, they're done because they can see what you refuse to. She was in their house as one son's teenage girlfriend, and now the older son is sleeping with her and calling it serious. That's sickening from a parent perspective. The fact your mom still checks on her tells me she sees her as a messed up kid in Fallout, while seeing you as the grown man who should have known better. That's why you're getting frozen out. Another one said, "What jumps out to me is how much of this relationship seems to depend on comparison." She liked that you weren't your brother. You liked that she saw you as better than him. Your brother hates that you became the replacement model. None of this sounds like two people building something healthy from scratch. It sounds like a triangle where everybody is reacting to everybody else's damage. Your girlfriend isn't blameless either. I don't care how bad your brother was. Saying she already liked you on that vacation means she was emotionally shifting while still in that relationship. Then she reached out 2 weeks after the breakup. That is not some innocent fresh start. It's messy, impulsive, and honestly kind of immature, which makes sense because she is 19, she's acting her age. You're the one who's almost 30, and acting like this is just fate. The weirdest part is that you're now trapped by your own pride. You can feel the cracks. She compares you to your brother, your family excludes you, your friends are backing off, and you still can't admit maybe this whole thing was rotten from the foundation up. Because then you'd have to face that you torched your life for a relationship built on rebound energy and your own need to feel chosen. Follow-up. I've been reading what people are saying. I'm not confused about why people are reacting the way they are. I just think a lot of you are filling in gaps with assumptions that don't actually match what's been happening in my life. First off, my brother and I weren't in some fragile situation before this, where one wrong move would destroy everything. We were close, yeah, but it wasn't one-sided. I've been the one covering for him for years. Driving out late at night to pick him up when he got into stupid situations, smoothing things over with our parents when he screwed up again, lending him money I never got back. This didn't start with me betraying him out of nowhere. There's a long history of me being the one who holds things together while he does whatever he wants and expects people to deal with it. And people keep acting like I swooped in on her. I didn't. I didn't flirt with her while they were together. I didn't make moves behind his back. We talked on that trip, yeah, but I talked to people. That's not some crime. I wasn't sitting there plotting how to date my brother's girlfriend. That's honestly ridiculous. When they broke up because of what he did. Not because of me, not because of anything between me and her. He got himself arrested. He's had issues before. That was the breaking point for her. I didn't cause that. And when she reached out to me, I didn't jump into a relationship. We hung out, we talked, things developed from there. People are acting like I should have shut it down immediately just because of who she used to date. That doesn't make sense to me. She's her own person. He doesn't own her. I don't see why I'm expected to treat her like she's off limits forever because of him. The age thing. Yeah, I see all the comments. I'm not ignoring it. But people are acting like she's a child, and she's not. She makes her own decisions. She approached me, and she chose to keep seeing me. I didn't pressure her into anything. If anything, I held back at the beginning because I knew how it could look. And about my family, people are acting like I just blew everything up for no reason. That's not how it feels from my side. It feels like I'm being pushed out for making a decision they don't like, while my brother's behavior over the years gets brushed off as, that's just how he is. He can get arrested, start fights, and create problems, and they still rally around him. I date someone they're uncomfortable with, and suddenly I'm the one getting cut off. That's where a lot of my frustration is coming from. It's not just about her. It's about realizing how uneven things have been for a long time. And yeah, I said what I said to my brother. I told him to stop acting like a baby. Maybe that wasn't the best wording, but I'm tired of being the one who has to tiptoe around his feelings when he's never done the same for anyone else. He's angry, fine, but that doesn't mean he gets to dictate my life. People keep saying I had millions of other options. That's not really the point. I didn't go out looking for this specific situation. It happened with someone I got to know, someone I actually connect with. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't matter just because it makes things complicated. And for the people saying this won't last, maybe it won't. A lot of relationships don't. That doesn't automatically make it wrong. By that logic, nobody should ever take a chance on anything unless it's guaranteed to work out. I get that this looks bad from the outside. I'm not blind to that. But living in it feels different than reading about it. I'm not trying to hurt my brother. I'm not trying to destroy my family. I'm just trying to live my life without feeling like I have to constantly sacrifice my choices to keep everything else stable. If that makes me the bad guy in everyone's eyes, then I guess that's where I'm at right now. Follow up. I know people already made up their minds about me. I didn't back off after my last post. If anything, I lent into it harder because I felt like if I started second guessing now, then everything I'd already lost would be for nothing. Things didn't settle. They shifted, but not in a good way. I started bringing up my brother more, not less. Not directly at first, but it kept coming out. Specific things I'd done for him over the years. Times I picked him up at 2 a.m., money I gave him, situations I smoothed over with my parents so he wouldn't deal with the fallout. I didn't plan to turn it into a list, but it kept coming up in arguments about my family cutting me off. Like I needed her to understand that I wasn't just some guy who randomly betrayed his brother. I'd been carrying him for years. She didn't respond the way I expected. She'd listen, but she wouldn't agree with me in that solid, validating way I wanted. It was more like she didn't want to take sides anymore. That started bothering me more than I admitted. At the same time, I kept trying to build something with her that felt stronger than all the noise around us. I started taking her out more, doing things she'd mentioned doing before but hadn't. Places she'd been with my brother, but I did them differently. Better restaurants, better planning, and more attention. I wasn't thinking of it as competition at the time, but looking back, it kind of was. The thing is, she enjoyed it. That's what made it confusing. She'd be genuinely happy, relaxed, into it. Those were the moments where I felt like everything I was holding on to made sense, like I wasn't crazy for choosing this, but it didn't stay consistent. There were small shifts I couldn't ignore. Anytime my brother came up, even indirectly, something changed in her. Not obvious, just subtle. A pause, a different tone. She didn't defend him, but she didn't fully shut him down either. It felt like there was still some space in her that wasn't fully closed off. I started noticing it more and more, to the point where I was waiting for it. That's when things in my head started going sideways. I didn't have anything concrete, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The way she'd be on her phone sometimes, turning it slightly away without thinking, saying she was going to meet friends but being vague about details. Nothing that on its own meant anything, but stacked together, it got to me. I asked her about it more than once. Not aggressively at first, just trying to understand. She denied anything every time. Calm, consistent, and no hesitation. If anything, she seemed confused that I was even asking. But I didn't let it go. At the same time, everything with my family was still gone, completely. No invites, no calls, nothing. I found out through someone else that they'd had another get-together, and I wasn't even mentioned. It stopped feeling temporary. It started feeling permanent. That's when something in me shifted again. It stopped being about fixing anything, and more about holding on to what I had left. And then it broke anyway. One night, it turned into a full argument. Not about one thing, just everything building up. I brought up the same stuff again. My brother, my family, everything I'd given up. I said things I probably shouldn't have, like how I chose her over all of that, and needed to know she wasn't making me look like an idiot. She got angry in a way I hadn't seen before. Not defensive angry. She said I was turning everything into a comparison, that I kept dragging my brother into something that was supposed to be separate. I pushed back and said it wasn't separate whether we liked it or not. It spiraled from there. I told her straight up I thought she was seeing someone else. She denied it. Again, stronger this time. Said I was making things up because I couldn't handle everything else going on. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But at that point, I didn't believe her anymore. I told her to leave. It wasn't some long, drawn-out decision. I just said it. Packed her stuff. Told her she needed to go. She kept saying I was wrong, that I was ruining things over something that wasn't real. But I didn't stop. I needed control over something at that point, and that's what it turned into. She left. A few days later, I saw her again. Not planned. I was out, and she was there with another guy. Not subtle. Sitting close and laughing, the kind of body language you don't misunderstand. I walked over. I don't even remember exactly what I said, something about how she could have just told me the truth. That's when it flipped. She didn't try to explain anything. She went straight at me, loud enough for people around us to hear, said I was controlling, that I'd been watching her, accusing her, making everything about my brother. Then it got worse. She called me a creep, said I went after her because she was young. Used words like predator. People were looking at me at that point. I didn't argue back. I didn't defend myself. I just stood there for a second and then left. There wasn't anything I could say in that moment that wouldn't make it worse. Since then, everything's just quiet, no family. No relationship. Most of my friends aren't around anymore either. The ones who are don't really bring this up, which somehow feels worse. I keep going over everything, trying to figure out where it actually went wrong. People say it was wrong from the start. Maybe that's true. I didn't see it that way when I was in it. Now it just feels like I pushed through every warning sign I had, lost everything around me trying to prove something, and still ended up exactly where everyone said I would. Except now, there's nothing left to go back to. Analysis. Everyone's already said he crossed a line. The age gap is weird, and the brother thing is messy. That's all true, but it's not the part that actually explains why this blew up the way it did. What's more interesting is how much of this guy's identity depended on being the better brother, and how fragile that actually was. He didn't just date her, he built a whole internal case around why it made sense, not love in a vacuum comparison. He needed her to confirm that he was the stable one, the mature one, the one who didn't screw up like his brother. That's why those early comments from her mattered so much. They weren't compliments, they were fuel. And once that became the foundation, everything else stopped being about the relationship itself. Notice how he kept bringing up receipts about his brother, rides, money, cleaning up messes. That wasn't random frustration. That was him trying to convert past effort into moral permission. Like, I've paid my dues, so I get this. But relationships don't work like that. You don't earn access to someone else's ex by being the responsible sibling for years. Then there's the part nobody really sits on long enough. He didn't just lose his family, he lost his role in it. Before all this, he was the dependable one, the one who fixes things, the contrast to the brother. That role only works if everyone else agrees with it. The second his parents stopped backing him and still showed care towards her, that identity cracked. That's why the situation with his mum texting her bothered him so much. Not because of loyalty in a normal sense, but because it flipped the dynamic. Suddenly, he wasn't the good one anymore. He was the problem, and she, someone who entered through his brother, was still being treated with softness. That kind of shift messes with people more than they admit. And then look at how he handled uncertainty. He didn't just suspect cheating, he needed it to be true. Because if she were still choosing him freely, then all the damage he caused would have to stand on its own. But if she were unfaithful, then he could reframe everything again. He didn't destroy his life, he got screwed over. That's why he jumped from suspicion to action so fast. Kicking her out wasn't about proof, it was about regaining control over a narrative that was slipping. Even the public blow-up at the end fits that pattern. The second she labeled him as something ugly in front of other people, he didn't fight back. Not because he took accountability, but because his entire self-image relies on being seen a certain way. Once that's gone in a public setting, he has nothing to stand on in that moment. So yeah, he lost his girlfriend, his family, and most of his support system. But the deeper thing is, he lost the version of himself he'd been relying on for years. And the uncomfortable part is he still hasn't replaced it with anything real.